Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us here on PBC TV in 2021. Today, Robert Mitchell-Thain, I'm going to talk to you about PBC and self-management. It's very much an introduction. We're not going to look at any of the tools and techniques that are available from the Foundation. We just want to talk about self-management. So the first question, what is self-management? So I'm going to take you to a much wiser mind than mine, and that is the mind of Audre Lorde. And she said, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation. This is me looking after me. And what we want you to do is to look after you one decision at a time. Now, that's really easy to say, but is it as easy to do? Well, let's find out. And at the end, hopefully, we know that the answer is yes. So I'm going to share with you the experience of Andy Capp. Andy Capp is a cartoon character, and he goes to the doctor and he says, "Doctor, what is the best thing I can do for my health?" And so the doctor says, the best thing you can do is to give up smoking, give up drinking, and give up fried food. All of which is eminently sensible medical advice. But do we as patients always follow that advice? Well, sometimes no. And Andy Capp's reply was, "Well, tell me what's the second best? Because you know what? I don't really fancy those answers." And this is where self-management comes in. Okay, now we're going to look at PBC, living with PBC, very shortly. But one of the aspects of living with PBC is living with the symptoms of PBC. And it's really, really easy for us to look at the clinical professions and say, "Doctor, fix me." But sometimes that's not always easy. And it's not always easy as pills, it's not always easy having surgery, and actually lifestyle change and lifestyle management can have a really, really important and profound effect. So let's race to the front of the queue. Let's go to the right-hand side and let's look at lifestyle change and let's see how that can help us with our self-management. So again, back to the question, what is self-management? Self-management is taking responsibility for your own condition. It's participating not only in the management of the condition or the disease, but also in the decision making. Now, it's with or without help. Now, one of the key aspects to this is we at the Foundation are here to help. So please, please do use us. And at the very, very least, the minimum goal is to prevent deterioration. So how do we split self-management? So the first aspect of self-management is our emotional self-management, looking at our emotions, how we feel, because that can have an impact on everything else. The second part of our self-management is our psychological self-management. This is what we think. What we think affects how we feel affects what we think, but both of those have an impact on what we do. So we want to look at physical self-management. Now, not only the idea of physical self-management, but also a look at symptom self-management. So what does that actually mean? It means doing the right thing for ourselves, one decision at a time. So let's start with emotional self-management. How do I feel today? You think about how you feel. Do you want that to change? If so, how do we then go about changing it? Psychological self-management. What am I thinking? Am I being supportive to myself in my self-talk, in my own language? Am I being critical? Am I being self-critical? All of these things are really, really important in terms of how we feel and what we do. When we look at physical self-management, so the first thing we can do is actually look at, for example, our medication. Do we take our medication each and every single day at the right dose for us? And then you've got symptom self-management. So again, looking after your fatigue, looking after your itch, looking after your joint pain, your bone pain, or any of these things that can affect you. So I want to look at two people who are on a journey. They're on the exact same journey, going to the exactly same destination. And yet they are having wildly different experiences of that same journey. So if you look at the person who's on the right of the screen with the purple jumper, they've got a big smile on their face, they're looking out at the scenery, they're loving the mountains. And then the person on the left with the green jumper, unhappy face, looking at the crag, and that's all they can see. And that's a choice. Now that may sound cold, may sound harsh, but that is the reality of it. There are so many phrases out there that support this premise. For example, that life is 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to that. And the quote from this slide is that so much of our happiness depends on how we choose to look at the world. So we have to look at where we are, build an awareness around that, and then start to look after ourselves. Again, one decision at a time. Now, we spoke about awareness. I just want to share one or two very brief quotes with you. I think one of my favorite ones from this slide is actually from Billie Jean King. She says, I think self-awareness is probably the most important thing towards being a champion. I'm never going to win Wimbledon. I don't imagine you are either. But when it comes to self-management, when it comes to being a PBC warrior, when it comes to living with an incurable condition, we each can be our own champion. And so I want to build up your awareness of the fact that awareness is absolutely key to how we are. Because if we know how we are and where we are, we can start to then do things about it. I'm going to give you a second to look at the other quotes on the slide. Awareness is the greatest agent for change. Awareness is a key ingredient in success. If you have it, teach it. If you lack it, seek it. There are so many ideas that float around this idea of awareness and self-awareness, knowing where you are, and therefore what you can then do to change it. So let's come back again to living with PBC, because this is why we're here today. Now, there are many, many parts to living with PBC, and some of the slides here will look at the emotional aspects, the psychological aspects, and also the physical aspects. So we have illness before diagnosis. So many people with PBC will have symptom burden even before they're diagnosed. How do we live with that? Then we have the diagnosis and the paradigm shift. Now, if you've never heard of a paradigm is your reality. And so to be told that you have an incurable disease changes your reality. To be told that you have something called primary biliary cholangitis you've never heard before, but hey, at the end of that, there may be liver transplant. That changes your reality. And often what comes after the moment of diagnosis is often a grieving period where you go through the classic signs or phases of grieving, where you actually bargain, where you come into anger and other emotions, and eventually you come to acceptance. You may be living with symptoms. You may have to have involved and really strong conversations with your healthcare practitioner because of what they do or may not know about PBC. Are you on the appropriate care pathway for you? Then there's the stigma of living with liver disease. And then, of course, right in the end of this, above everything else, are you a nurse or responder? Are you not a nurse or responder? And if you are, if you're not, that will have an impact in terms of your care pathway, your levels of stress and anxiety, and how you live with PBC. All of which comes to, again, how do we live and how do we look after ourselves? And the answer is one decision at a time. Now, I'm going to take you back to 2018, where we asked a number of PBC patients, how does it feel to live with PBC? Now, this is really, really important. Okay, so this was back in 2017, and there were 1,089 patients answered us. This is how it lives. This is how it is to live with PBC. And you'll see that pain and anxious are right in the middle there, and they're two of the biggest words. Okay, so look at pain and anxious in that slide. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the top 8 answers into this word cloud. Now, remember that in the word cloud, the more a word is said, the bigger it is within the picture. Now, with my public arrow, I'm going to show you. There's pain and there's anxious. Okay, you see them there? Just on the other side of worried. So you've got anxious there and you've got pain there. Now, again, if we go back to the previous slide, they're absolutely huge in this, but when we put the top 8 answers, they are tiny there and there. Now, we have itchy, which we can medicate for. But when you look at exhausted, depressed, tired, worried, fatigued, frustrated, and lethargic, there's no licensed therapy for your fatigue and PBC. So what's the biggest single aspect that can improve your quality of life? It's self-management. It's looking after you. Now, we have the tools and techniques that can help you. So please, please do come to us. You can use our compendium. You can use our app. You can come to our online workshops. You can look at our previous videos. There's a whole host of things that you can access. Now, this is a really, really important message, because when we look at people who access our services, now this was published in 2018 at AASLD, the American Association for Study of Liver Disease, and they published this information in poster form. So we had 727 patients reply. Now, of those 727 patients, 88% agreed, either strongly agreed or agreed, in a 4-point scale, that access to PBC Foundation services enabled them to better manage their symptoms. That's huge. That's so, so important, especially when there are not readily available licensed therapies for things like fatigue. 89% agreed that accessing the PBC Foundation services enabled them to make more informed decisions about their PBC and its treatment. And 93%, and almost half, strongly agreed that accessing the Foundation services helped them feel less alone. Now, this is even before we look at the online aspects of our services and the chit chats and everything else that's going on. So again, these are really, really key, important messages that if you need help with your self-management, come to the Foundation. We have tools, we have techniques, we have a community who understand, who have walked through these tunnels and have come through the other side. We have many, many people now that are diagnosed 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, 30 plus years with their PBC. So come be part of it, share their experience, and know that you can make a difference by looking after yourself one decision at a time. And again, as we started, I'm going to a much wiser mind than mine for the last phrase of today. And the last phrase of today is, if you think that you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. Those are the words of Dalai Lama, and with him, I cannot argue. Thank you for watching today. Again, if you can feel, know, think that you would be helped by self-management tools and techniques, do come to the Foundation, and we'll see you then. Take care.